Hey, as I write this, it is August of 2019, but in October of 2012, 7 years ago almost, I had surgery to have my prostate removed because I had prostate cancer. And since that time, I have it's gone. I have PSA test and there's no recognizable cancer. But what I did, I wanted to just go over some things with you. I want to explain what prostate cancer is. Maybe your dad, your grandpa, maybe you've had prostate cancer, maybe you know somebody. A lot of men will have prostate cancer. So I want to explain the prostate a little bit here and what the process is just a little bit. But then also I really want to talk to you about what it's like to have cancer and go through it. Having cancer is different than you probably think. You might think how you know you would handle it. It's like the boxer that says everyone has a plan till you get smashed in the face. Then you don't have a plan anymore when you're boxing. Okay, when you get hit real hard, then instincts kick in. And so I didn't know how I would react. My sister Sue did die of cancer at age 47 in 1998. She was diagnosed with cancer, gave her 6 months to live, and she died. She had it everywhere in her body except her breast. They found it at first because she couldn't see good out of an eye, and there was a tumor pushing on the back of her eye, which was deforming the eye, which gave her bad vision. So that was my sister Sue, and that was her story. So all this was in the back of my mind. Well, the prostate is something that God made, kind of like a little crossroads thing that goes between the bladder and the urethra goes through it, where it goes out and it's where you urinate. And only men have them. And there's something called PSA. And it's something they use to measure to see if you have prostate cancer. It's called prostate-specific antigen. So it's really good. Excuse me, let me back up. It's not really good for knowing if you have prostate cancer. So they also do an exam where they do a rectal exam. They go up through there and feel your prostate and see how big it is. Oh yeah, real enjoyable. I used to tell my doctor, you're boldly going where no man has gone before. But anyway, he said he's heard them all. With the PSA, they can think that you might have cancer. Well, on mine, my PSA kept going up. Now, something I need to tell you guys is that when you're 40, every 2 years, you should go in and have a physical, and you should get your PSA checked, and you should have that exam, prostate exam. When you're 50, then you should do it every year. I started when I was 40, and by the time I was 50, I could just see the the PSA going up every year. So finally, at age 55, the prostate is supposed to be 4.0, the PSA 4.0 or below. Mine was 5.5 to 7.4. And kept going up. The doctor said, we'll give you an antibiotic, it'll go down, and mine actually went up. So he ordered the biopsy. Now the biopsy is as much fun as you think. They go up your rectum and they shoot 12 needles through into the prostate. And for some people, maybe it's not bad. After about 4 or 5 months, I couldn't even tell I'd had prostate surgery. But as I sit here today, I can still feel the biopsy. Yeah, it's that much fun. For me, maybe something went wrong, or maybe they hit a nerve or something went wrong. But anyway, so they take 12 little samples. They shoot a needle in and it pulls out a sample. And they take 12 samples. And mine had 3% of my prostate was cancerous. It was stage 3-4 cancer. The doctor, we met, and he wanted to run some more tests because he said that I had an abscess on one of my kidneys. Well, we ran more tests and I had a CAT scan, and what we found is that I didn't have an abscess on a kidney. I have something called a duplicate system. So I have a left kidney, a right kidney, and then an additional right kidney, but it's probably not full size, and the doctor says it may not even be functioning. Now, when I used to farm, we raised 10,000 hogs a year, and we found out that the mother sow, when she gets impregnated, 30 to 40 embryos get impregnated, and the stronger ones actually absorb the weaker ones in the womb. So I know that I have 5 wisdom teeth. I found out in my surgery I have an extra artery going from my heart to my groin, and I also have an extra, duplicate system kidney. So I asked the doctor if possibly I was twins and I was the stronger embryo and I absorbed the other one, and they said, oh, by all means, it could happen. So that kind of freaks you out when you're 55 years old and for the first time, your mom's already dead and you're thinking, wow, I might have been a twin and I survived. That's kind of a weird feeling. So when I did get my biopsy, they said that they didn't think that my cancer had spread anywhere else, just from all the tests they did and stuff like that. So we talked about different treatment options, and it seemed 2 of them were more promising. One was radiation and the other one's removing the prostate. And the doctor told me about all these things, and I asked him what he would do, and he said he couldn't tell me. And so finally I said, okay, look, my sister died of cancer when she was 47. If I have cancer in me, I think I want to get it out. That was one reason. The other one is I had a friend that had prostate cancer, and they said, just come in every 6 months. One of the main things they said to do is just keep an eye on it and check it. Well, my friend goes in every 6 months and gets it checked, but then once every couple of years, they said, whoops, it's a little high. Why don't you come in a month and check it out again? Well, I think stress is one of the biggest killers there is, and I didn't want to go through that for the rest of my life, wondering what my PSA was going to be, and going in and getting it checked. And so I decided that I just have the prostate removed. So we planned the surgery, but here's some of the advantages I thought of that made me tip the scale in going with surgery. One is it's the best chance that all the cancer is just gone. I asked the doctor, will you spill some of it in there? And he laughed and told me they actually take the prostate and put it in a plastic bag and zip it shut and pull it out. They don't spill any cancer inside you. He kind of laughed and said, no, you don't know how it happens, that we can't spill the cancer in you. And I thought, okay, well, I didn't know that. The other thing, too, is that for the first 2 years after you have your prostate out, it seems like they had me come in once every 3 months the first year, and then twice during the second year, like every 6 months. And every time you go in, I had no recognizable PSA, is what they say. It's like, instead of having like 4.0 would be ideal, I have maybe like 0.210 or something, it's like called not even recognizable. So what the PSA does is it's okay for telling you if you have prostate cancer before the prostate removal. But it's not the most accurate thing. That's why they also do the prostate exam. But once you have your prostate removed, then it's pretty accurate about telling you if that prostate cancer has metastasized and it's anywhere else in your body. So something else that I learned too was that prostate cancer inside the prostate is pretty benign. It's no big deal. But once it gets outside of the prostate and it metastasizes, especially if it gets in your bones, then it's a big deal. I have a good friend whose dad died of that. I know a couple of people, my friends, their dads have died of that. Okay. So beyond the 2 years, one of the advantages, I wouldn't have to have any more prostate PSA test. And I also wouldn't have to have any more exams, prostate exams. I wouldn't have to have any more prostate biopsies. I would have no concern over whether prostate cancer would ever come back. I'm 7 years out. I have no concern that it's ever really going to come back. And also, I won't have to get up as often to urinate. And at the worst, I was getting up every hour to go to the bathroom, like I said. Another thing, too, that's interesting, that's just really, really weird, was all my life, you can't urinate on demand. You ever go to the doctor to go for a sports physical or something, and they say to urinate. Well, you can't urinate on demand because you have to wait until the bladder gets so full, then you can urinate usually. But since I've had my surgery, I've had something interesting happen. If I urinate and then Kim and I decide we're going to go somewhere and it's been 15 or 30 minutes, I can go to the bathroom and I can go whatever amount my kidneys have manufactured in that amount of time. So if I'm only a tenth full or a 20th full, I can go that amount. So it's kind of interesting. So there's a couple of risks too from the surgery. One is the surgery itself. Whenever they cut your body open, let's face it, that's always a risk, infection and a lot of things. Also a chance that I would not be able to control my urine, incontinence they call it, where I'd have to wear a pad. And that's something I wasn't looking forward to. And then also the third thing, there's a chance that I would not be able to get an erection again and perform sexually again. And the doctor said that was very, very small percent chance that, and he said, even a needle if I have to. And I said, wait a minute, I'm a guy, I got to know this. I guess, are you telling me? He goes, yeah, you take a needle and you give yourself a shot there. And I'm thinking, I don't even want to think about that. Never had to do that. Luckily, God has been gracious, and I haven't had any of the side effects. My surgery, no side effects today. I don't have any trouble. They gave me after my surgery, they gave me a pad to wear home, and they told me it might be 3 to 6 months I'd have to wear that pad because I couldn't control my urine. And I wore it home, and I've never worn it since. What happens is, normally your urine is held back by the prostate. About 60% of it's held back, and 40% by the sphincter muscle. Now, if you want to know what your sphincter muscle is, squeeze your butt cheeks together. That's what they say. And when you feel that, that's your sphincter muscle, okay? So what happens after surgery is you no longer have the prostate. So now the sphincter has to go from 40% to 100%. So the sphincter has to kick in. You have to train that muscle. Well, they didn't tell me to, but I exercised that muscle a lot beforehand. And I even heard somebody say, don't exercise that beforehand. But I don't know, I did, and I haven't had any problem. I'm like poster child of success for this, So when all this happened, how was I doing mentally in all this? And I think I'm an optimistic realist. I believe I really am. The other thing, too, is as a Christian, I believe everything happens for a reason. I don't believe Satan gave me cancer. I believe God wants me to grow and be more like Jesus. And I've also found in life, and it's so true, you'll never really grow close to Jesus when all your plans are going great. You grow close to Jesus through suffering and through hardships and through trials. And one of the things that we leave out of the Christian doctrine is the suffering. There's all kinds of scriptures and that refer to us that we need to suffer as Christ suffered, because that will refine us. And James says, count it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because it'll make us more like Jesus, is what it does. So this is something that I looked at differently than most people. Everything I do, I think, how can this bring glory to Jesus? So the very first thing that I thought actually was, I'm glad I have cancer instead of Kim. The second thing I thought was, how can this bring glory to Jesus? And I think God allowed me to have cancer so that it would make me more like him, and it has. Every breath is better. Food tastes better. The sunshine is more appreciated. My wife is more appreciated. I'm more kind. I'm a better person. It changed me and made me a better person. If I could go back today and say, okay, you have cancer or not have cancer. In other words, if I could just wipe the slate clean and never have to have prostate cancer and go back and not have the surgery, I wouldn't do it, because I'm more like Jesus because of this. Another thing, a way that cancer has changed me, it started when my sister Sue died in 1998, is that I like to work, but I'm less concerned with working and more concerned with finding worth along the way in who I am. So I think I'm a great worker, but it doesn't just possess me the way that it used to. While I greatly miss Sue, I'm a better person because of her death. In 2007, Kim and I sold everything. We lived in a motorhome. We traveled for 3.5 years, and I wouldn't have done that if Sue hadn't died of cancer. And now that I have had cancer, and when I got cancer, I was so glad that we had taken the time and done that. I have a good friend who had cancer, and he said that he realized he was so sick, he was near death. He'd suffered so much, but along the way he realized how much he'd become like God. So he cried out to God and said, God, if this is what it takes to make me like Jesus, if it takes cancer to make me like you, then bring it on. Bring on the cancer. Make me more like you. I thought, wow, that's a bold prayer. That was just pretty interesting, or pretty crazy that he looked at it like that. But yet it's really true. Also, I had a person that said that a lot of Christians pray for healing. But maybe instead of praying for healing, pray for strength from God to go through whatever it is and learn the lessons. And that's what I did. Corrie ten Boom was a person that in World War II, her family hid a lot of Jews from the Germans. And her family got caught. They were thrown into a concentration camp. Her dad died within a few weeks. Her sister Betsy died in a concentration camp. And she just endured incredible hardship, immeasurable compared to anything we might know. And this is all recorded in her book called The Hiding Place. It's a great Christian classic you have to read if you haven't read it yet. So Corrie spent the rest of her life encouraging other people toward Christ. And one day she was asked if she could change anything in her life, would she change it? And she replied, why would I want anything but God's will in my life? And so that's how I chose to go through this. So we set up the surgery for October 18th of 2012. So along the way, I have some life lessons, some things that I've learned from cancer. And one of the things was, after we set up the surgery date, I used to be an avid shooter. I like to target shoot. And so once I had gotten cancer and I had my surgery planned, I went and bought a 1-year membership at the gun range to use the indoor range. And when I bought the membership for 1 year, I had a consciousness that I was really thankful to think that I might have another year of life left. And if I hadn't had cancer, I wouldn't have registered. I would have just bought a year membership. And, like right now, are you going to be here next Christmas? Yeah. You're thinking you will be. I remember my sister's last Christmas when she had cancer. And I remember looking at her and knowing that she wouldn't be there in another year. And she wasn't. We had a guy that dressed as Santa Claus, and he came in every year. And as he left, he said, we'll see you all next year. And I went in a spare bedroom and I cried because I knew my sister wouldn't be there next year. So the prostate surgery, whatever I do, I love to have fun with people. So before the surgery, they were prepping me, and one of the nurses said, now when you get into the operating room, you're going to have to get off the gurney and get over onto the robotic operating table. You're going to have to walk over there, just so you know it. And I said, oh, is there a discount for that? And because I love to have fun. And she said, no, but after the surgery, if you can get off the surgical table and walk over and get on the gurney, there is a discount for that. Just another little sidebar about this. I mean, you ask things because you just don't know. And one of the questions was, I had prostate cancer, and I know that the seminal fluid is made or goes through there. It gets added there. That's where the semen and the seminal fluid get added. And so I asked my doctor when I went to him before the surgery, I said, can I, through sex, can I give this to my wife? And he kind of laughed. He said, no, it doesn't work that way. But I didn't want to give Kim cancer, and I didn't know, So one of the things that Kim and I talked about before the surgery was during this time of waiting was that there was a chance that I couldn't perform sexually. And we talked it over and said, you know, it's an important part of our life, but if we couldn't, we realized we could still have a good marriage. And during this time, as I was studying, I read about a guy who had had surgery and he couldn't perform anymore sexually. And he said, I learned ways to please my wife that I'd never thought of. And he said, I'm kind of ashamed that I never thought of it before. And so it made me, expand how I think about pleasing my wife too. So, I was 55 years old and, cancer, death, sex, death, sex, death, sex. Weigh it out, If I was 24 and they said, okay, die or sex, I'd say, well, let me think about this a while. I got to think about this, Another thing I learned from cancer was one of my buddies told me well-intended people come up and offer you some quick fix remedy that if you could just do this. And I actually had it happen to me. And they mean well, but they just come up and flippantly say, oh, here's this simple thing. And when people have cancer, especially terminal cancer, there are a lot of people that will try to make money off of that. Not my friend that talked to me, but the people say, oh, if you just do this, you won't have cancer. In my case, he said, oh, if you just take alkaline, you won't have cancer. Alkaline and cancer can't exist together. And then he said, well, if you don't, and I kind of questioned him, he said, well, if you want to have cancer instead, you can do that. And I was like, my gosh, if alkaline itself worked and nobody would have cancer with alkaline, then why were we treating cancer today? But that was just me. And for him to come up and do that was harder on me than finding out that I had cancer. That's just me. That insensitivity was harder on me than finding out that I had cancer. So kind of guard yourself. People come up and hand you books. People come up and give you advice. And it's maybe flippant. And they haven't thought it through. And they don't realize what you're going through mentally. So you just might kind of be ready for that if you have cancer. When I went through cancer, I had a group of prayer partners. And I also blogged about it on our blog. Mitch and Kim was the blog that has all of our travels of when we traveled with our motorhome. And it's where I blogged about my cancer. If you want to go read it. MitchandKim.com. So the surgery went well. I was shocked at how uninvasive it was. I had 5 little tiny incisions about maybe this long. So I did come out of surgery and I was going to have a catheter for 2 weeks. And they warned me. I said, you're going to put that in when I'm passed out, right? They go, yeah. I said, okay, good. And something no man really enjoys. But I thought, oh, this will be horrible for 2 weeks. But to be honest with you, after 2 weeks, it wasn't that bad. The worst thing was they said, don't ever hang the catheter bag on something and walk away, which I did once, the vanity in the bathroom. And you don't only do that once. They actually said you could hurt yourself doing that. But a catheter is actually a hose that they put up in you, and in the end it has a little balloon. And then it has a little tube that goes up there with it. And they take a hand pump or something, and they pump up the air in that balloon so it seals it, is what it does. And so the cool thing about the catheter bag was, I used to get up every hour and go to the bathroom. Now I could lay down in bed, hang the bag beside it, and I could get up in the next morning and go, wow, look what I did, and I didn't have to get up at all at night. So I really enjoyed not getting up every hour because I hadn't been sleeping well for years because of my prostate. Everything the doctor said was positive. The nurse came out during the surgery and said that they tested my lymph nodes and they were negative for cancer. So that was a great thing, meaning that the cancer probably hadn't metastasized, spread. The doctor said that, once again, my prostate should have been the size of a walnut, but it was the size of a plum. He said the pathology report said it was about 5% cancerous, and he really thought they got it all. And I would go back in 6 weeks to get my first PSA, and the count should be real low, and of course it was. So from here on out, it's just retraining my urinary system. The one thing I found was I couldn't really sit cross-legged, or that could lead to an accident. Getting the catheter out was a good day. Once I had it, though, I realized if I had to live with the catheter the rest of my life, it's not that big of a deal. They have a bag. You can put straps around your leg, and nobody knows that you have it. It's not the worst thing in the world to have a catheter, but I'm glad I don't have to. But we always think this is unbearable, and it wouldn't be unbearable is my point. The one other thing I want to tell you about cancer that I learned that was a very valuable lesson is that when I got cancer, because Kim loves me, she got cancer. She didn't physically have it in her body, but she might as well have mentally, because Kim loves me that much. So one of the things that helped me was, as I'm a cancer buddy to these guys, and like from here we drove 3 hours to Indy for a guy to have surgery, And we went down there, and Kim and I sat with the guy's wife the whole surgery because she was going through what he was going through because she loves him so much. So that's something to think about. When somebody has cancer, sure, love on them, but everybody's loving on them. Look at their spouse and help their spouse, because they're the one that's trying to be strong and really maybe hurting more inside. Hope this has been helpful. A little bit about what cancer meant to us in our lives, and have a wonderful day. Hey, by all means, if you would, go to our blog at keepingthevows.com and sign up there so that you get an email and you get each of our new posts. Also, you can go to Keeping the Vows at YouTube, and that's a video of all of our things there. And you can sign up there, like it if you would, subscribe if you would. That way you'll get them there. But the main thing we'd really like to have you do is comment. Leave comments and ask questions, because that's how we get to know where you're at, and we want to be relevant. And that's how we know, is when you ask questions and say, what about this? Then we do questions for things like that. Have a wonderful day. God bless.